All companies in the world are very insidious. They give you a salary, but only so that you will need money again in a month. In fact, the only purpose of paying you a paycheck is to let you survive until the next month. Most people spend their hard-earned money completely recklessly. For the first few days after receiving their paycheck, they happily spend it on various nonsense. By the end of the month, they are left with nothing, which is very beneficial to their employer. They have no money left for self-development or to try to get out of this vicious circle and start living and working for themselves. Most middle-class workers quench this weakness by getting drunk every Friday because they lack the resources and time to do anything useful. But in reality, it's not that hard to fix the situation and stop depending on your paycheck. It's called the Paycheck Routine. 4 simple actions that everyone should do after receiving a paycheck that will prevent you from wasting your salary. The first thing you need to do is to remember what you did with your salary last month. It seems simple, but in fact, in the beginning, this is one of the hardest things to accomplish. I'm sure you can't remember what you spent 60% of your last salary on. Yes, there are the obvious expenses: accommodation, food, taxes, but what else? And most importantly, were these expenses worth it? Most likely, you spent that money on things you've already eaten, drunk, or forgotten. Now look around you and try to find something you spent your last paycheck on that you'll have for a long time to use. Most people will only be able to name clothes and stupid stuff from AliExpress. You could just as easily walk down the street and give half your salary to a homeless guy. You'd get rid of it anyway. If what you just read describes you, don't worry. You are now among the 99% of people who just throw away their salary. But this is not a situation that you should be satisfied with. Luckily, this point will correct itself. Just try to write down all your expenses for the month starting this month. And when I say all, I mean literally all. Even a packet of chips bought at the store is an expense. When you read the list at the end of the month and calculate how much money was spent on useless purchases, most of which you have already forgotten, you will think much longer about whether you need that pack of chips or whether you can do without them today. Please note that I don't mean to imply that treating yourself to something tasty or fun is absolutely forbidden. But if this is where most of your money goes, you should think about it. In the future, write down each of your purchases, and at the end of each month, analyze how you spent it. In the first month, your expenses will drop by about 10%. In the next month, by another 10%. And so, with the same salary, you will become richer every month without doing anything. It will be even more useful to make a plan of how you are going to spend the month. This will be beneficial not only for your financial well-being, but very often for your health. Reduce spending on sweets, fast food, alcohol, and other unhealthy products. And at the end of the month, review your plan and see if you were able to fulfill it. And if not, why not? Once you've analyzed your budget, it's time to move on to the next step. This step is the most important in the long run. This is saving. It is this step that will help you become independent of your salary. Switch to passive income. Start your own business, travel, do whatever you want. At the same time, it is the most difficult and requires the most discipline. U.S. Senator Professor Elizabeth Warren, who developed the system of personal savings, believes that the ideal amount of money to save is 20% of your salary. Don't think that the more you save, the better. If you save all the money you have available, cutting corners on nice little things for yourself, you'll burn out faster than you'll have time to save any minimally useful amount of money. Your experiment with the paycheck routine will end in a few months with a complete failure. You shouldn't spend less either. Of course, everyone has different life situations, and if your entire salary is spent on housing and essentials, then saving even 1% per month is a great result. But if you don't feel an urgent need for extra money, then you shouldn't spare money for savings. Don't think of it as unspent money. This is money that will bring you much more benefit and satisfaction in the future. Very often, people face a serious problem: a lack of discipline when saving. This makes the task much harder. The constant urge to spend your entire salary somewhere is a big problem on the way to financial independence. Very often, people think that they will not have such problems. But we live in a world of consumption, where every second someone is trying to sell us something, and everything is so nice and seems so necessary. At such moments, it is very difficult to resist buying, especially when you have extra money that you have set aside. You can start saving next month, right? These are all very bad thoughts that you need to learn to resist. First, you should definitely introduce the 3-day rule into your life. Advertising puts pressure on our emotions, and we don't understand why we need it. We just want to buy it immediately. Marketers are well aware of this, and they put pressure on this desire. The product may be about to run out of discounts, or it may be almost sold out, and you can buy it in just 2 clicks, so you need to hurry. This is where you should stop and think. Do I really need this product? Come back to the offer in 3 days. As a rule, during this period of time, all desires to buy disappear, and you begin to rationally realize whether you really need this product. If you realize that you really need it and can't do without it, buy it. If after 3 days you realize that you've just fallen for the ad, then congratulations, you've just saved yourself a few dollars that you can definitely spend on something useful in the future. And don't be sorry if you missed some special offer or sale that seemed extremely profitable during these 3 days. Remember, if promotions were beneficial to buyers, sellers wouldn't run them. And by thinking about what you really need and what you don't, you will save much more money than if you grabbed all the goods in a row, even at a very big discount. If you don't have the patience to wait for 3 days and you're just consumed by the desire to buy something, then this is a serious problem. In fact, this is a real consumption addiction. It is a fantastic task to fix it in a month. But your friends or relatives or just close people can help you. When you get your salary, give them 20% of it. Let them hide this money somewhere and not give it back to you for a certain period of time. Let's say 3 months. That means you won't physically have a way to spend it, and you'll accumulate capital. Keep money only with people you really trust, and if not, get a receipt to avoid further problems. If the situation is such that you cannot force yourself not to spend money and there is no one to give it to, then there is only one option left: investments. You need to immediately spend this money on something that will bring you even more money in the future. You can invest in real estate, loans, any project you like. Luckily, we live in the 21st century, and you can start investing with as little as $10. Investing requires learning and a balanced approach to risks. But if you're willing to take the time to understand the situation, this approach is probably even better than simply putting 20% of your salary into a piggy bank. When your budget is planned and the necessary amount is set aside, you can spend the remaining money with a calm mind. First, you need to take care of the essentials: housing, debts, taxes, food. This category takes up to 50% of your salary, and this is the basis without which the financial balance will simply fall apart. The 50% figure here is a bit outdated. Time has changed. Inflation has risen, and housing prices in most countries have increased dramatically. The minimum food basket is also not standing still. According to some studies, it is now simply impossible to live on 50% of the minimum in big cities. Some economists raise this figure to 70 or even 80%, but most agree that now the 50-30-20 rule formulated by Elizabeth Warren has changed to 60-20-20. This is not such a drastic change, and it no longer sounds so threatening. Let's take a closer look at what it includes. The first and foremost is paying rent or a mortgage. It's your roof over your head, and you shouldn't skimp on it. Set aside a specific amount and pay it as soon as you get your paycheck to avoid delays or penalties. This is the most important expense for the entire month. Very often, it devours half of the budget at once. If you're a student in a big city, for example, it can take your entire salary. There is only one piece of advice here: look for a place that you can afford, and with a good landlord. If you are poor, there is nothing terrible about living in an apartment with lower conditions for a few months. It's much more important that you have money left over for other types of expenses. Everyone started out with little, and probably every millionaire who began without rich parents had to live in some lousy apartment on the outskirts of the city. Charles Aznavour lived in a barn once, and Xi Jinping even lived in a cave. There is even a certain romance in this, and one day you will remember this time with a smile. Utilities. Electricity, water, internet, these are also critical. Write a list of all regular payments and check in advance that all bills are paid. Don't wait until the last minute. There is nothing worse than debt when it comes to budget planning. Do everything you can to make sure you don't owe anyone, especially the government. Debts and loans. If for some reason you do have loans or credits, this is the second priority item after housing. You need to be extremely careful with them. They can easily bring you to critical poverty. At the beginning of the month, cover the minimum mandatory payments. If you can, pay more to close the debt as soon as possible and reduce interest over payments. Debt is a serious blow to your future. They can easily stop your development and even lead you to complete bankruptcy. Food. Plan your food expenses in advance. Make a shopping list and stick to it. Try to avoid spontaneous spending on expensive snacks or food from delivery. It will quickly eat up your budget. If you want to save money, make a menu for the week and shop once, avoiding frequent visits to the store. When you don't have much money, it's better not to experiment with food. Any culinary surprises can be detrimental to your budget. If you spent money on exotic products and you didn't like them, it's always a pity. To begin with, your choice is easy-to-cook, nutritious foods that don't spoil quickly. Cereals, pasta, vegetables, meat, and fish. However, you shouldn't sacrifice nutritional value in the pursuit of economy. To be rich, you'll have to use your brain a lot. Lack of certain elements, vitamins, or minerals, or simply prolonged hunger, have a very negative impact on your cognitive abilities. Find a middle ground between the monetary and nutritional value of your food. Transportation. An important point that is often forgotten. If you have to take the bus or subway to work or school every day, be sure to calculate each of your potential trips. Look for ways to save money. As a rule, in every major city there are tickets available that can be used to pay for travel for a month or even a whole year. This is usually much cheaper than buying a new one-way ticket every time. It's different if you have your own car. It gives you an advantage in comfort and speed, but it is often much more expensive than other modes of transportation. If you use a car, put aside money for fuel right away and pray that it doesn't break down. Otherwise, you risk spending all your savings on repairs. A bicycle is a much more profitable option than a car. It doesn't need fuel, maintenance is minimal, and, importantly, it's healthy. Consider this option if your commute from home to work is not too long. If it's even shorter, walking is always a good option. And the last thing you need to plan is your personal expenses. These are the 30% that make life brighter and more enjoyable. If you spend all your money only for the benefit of others, very quickly your life will turn into one endless gray, boring day. In life, you need to know how to relax. Let's take a closer look at where this money can go. Clothes. Your style is not just about your appearance, but also about your confidence. Clothing plays a big role in how people perceive you. You're not Steve Jobs, and you can't afford to wear the same sweater every day. Allocate some of your money to update your wardrobe. Buy things that you need, not just at a discount. If your clothes are still in good condition, you can save money and set aside this amount for something else within the same budget. Entertainment. Movies, concerts, cafes with friends, parties. All this adds joy to everyday life. Plan how you want to spend this month and determine how much you are willing to spend on entertainment. It's important not to turn it into chaotic spending, but to follow a plan. Hobbies. Everyone needs something to be passionate about. This is what makes us interesting. Maybe you draw, play the guitar, or go in for sports. Spend money on materials, equipment, or training. It's an investment in your enjoyment and development. Travel. If you like a change of scenery, consider short trips. It can be a hike in the mountains, a trip to a neighboring city, or even a day at the spa. Food for the soul. Don't confuse it with food for everyday meals. It's about pleasure. Go to your favorite cafe, order sushi home, or buy that expensive chocolate you've been dreaming of. Small pleasures make days better. Self-development. Perhaps the most important point here. Most people don't have enough time or money for this. But if you have a well-planned budget, this is the best way to spend your resources. If you want to learn something new, this 30% can go to courses, books, or master classes. This is also about you and your future, even if it seems like it's just for fun. Spend this money with love for yourself. But don't forget about the limits of your budget. You deserve comfort, joy, and satisfaction from life. So use that 30% wisely. If you've always dreamed of becoming richer, but your boss doesn't want to hear anything about raising your salary, then maybe these 4 steps are just what will take you to the next level. You don't need to earn more money if you know how to use what you have better than others. This is the Money Channel. You will get richer.